Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar from Aviatrix around achieving unrivaled cost efficiency, visibility, and security. This is the first in a three-part series around Aviatrix approach to NAT gateway replacement. And today we're going to focus on the security side of things. The next two webinars, we're going to go deeper into the visibility aspects as well as the cost efficiency. My name is Paul Carville. I'm the Director of Global Solution Architecture here at Aviatrix, and I'm joined by my peer, Dan Sheldon, who is Director of Solution Engineering. Dan is going to give a quick introduction to Aviatrix for folks who are not familiar with who we are and what we do and the challenges we solve. There's only going to be 2 slides, so bear with us. It's a great way to level set and set the scene for when we jump into the our cloud perimeter security approach, and more specifically, our NAT gateway replacement story. The webinar is going to last about, I would say, 15 minutes. There's going to be time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to drop any questions you might have into the chat. We're going to go through 2 main parts. We're going to walk you through what the challenge and problems that we see our customers facing today. And then we're going to go deep into how Aviatrix addresses those challenges and how we can get you started in a zero friction approach. And at the very end, there's going to be a small call to action where I'm going to speak a little bit about our platform as a service solution as well. So Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you for the introduction, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much, Paul. Looking forward to it. So there are a lot of technology solutions out there kind of in the atmosphere. I like to keep things very concise. So the goal here is, if you were to think of Aviatrix, what 3 things do we do? What is our unique capability, comprehensively? In the cloud space, whether that be hybrid cloud to public cloud, or public cloud to public cloud, or region to region, or within a public cloud, we really do 3 things very well. So we automate and orchestrate the network connectivity between those or within those, which is simplifying the complexity of managing multiple routers and security solutions, things like that. We improve security by enabling granular policy enforcement at a distributed level. So you are able to make your security decisions in one single pane of glass. However, that's actually enforced in a distributed manner. And then lastly, the ability to reduce the cost for those cloud native connectivity constructs, whether it be VPC peering or transit gateway, attachments, or VNets, VNet peering, et cetera, private link, all of those components. So the ability to automate and orchestrate the network connectivity, the ability to enforce policy at a distributed and very granular level, and the ability to reduce costs, improve your visibility, all of those aspects. To Paul's point, 2 slides. I like to do overviews very quickly. So Aviatrix is celebrating our 10th birthday. There was lots of cake and balloons. It was a great affair. Sorry you missed it. But in 2018, we created effectively a router that could connect different VPCs within AWS. AWS liked the idea so much that they created the AWS Transit Gateway in 2019. But by that point, we had already really kind of expanded out into the other clouds. So whether it be Azure, GCP, OCI, Alibaba Cloud, et cetera, we decided to take all of that network connectivity layer that we had already built in a hub and spoke topology. Let's create some security controls within those nodes, right? So in 2020, we embedded that network security, called a distributed cloud firewall, while maintaining the ability to also utilize a kind of a firewall service insertion for third-party firewalls like Palo Alto and Fortinet and Cisco, Checkpoint, et cetera, et cetera. Add another 4 years on top of that. We're within over 500 enterprise customers, a little over 50 to Fortune 500. I think the slide is a bit outdated, across 25 countries. So Paul and I are coming to you from both Luxembourg and the US. And everywhere from 5, 10 VPCs all the way to 5,000 VPCs or VNets for some of our larger, more mature customers.
Thanks, Dan. Great. So, that's a quick introduction to Aviatrix, who we are, and we solve very, very different challenges for different customers. It's a complex platform for full VPC service-to-service routing, firewalling, integration with SD-WAN, multi-cloud connectivity, complex NAT features, a lot of different things. But to frame the discussion today, we're really addressing one particular challenge that our customers have. And that challenge is how to move away from the cloud native NAT gateway constructs because of the challenges and lack of features that they have. And I just want to go a little bit deeper into framing that problem today and how people are actually deploying internet access in the cloud for non-routable workloads. So this is a typical multi-cloud deployment. You'll recognize what this is. It's we've got an AWS estate, we've got an Azure estate, and a Google Cloud estate. But regardless of the different estates, the ask from a developer who's got a workload in those clouds, and generally those workloads will likely not have a public IP address, is they still need access to the internet. Now, how we solve that today from a cloud native perspective, giving workloads access to the internet who do not have public IP addresses, is by deploying a NAT gateway function. NAT gateway is not a foreign concept for us. Anyone who has an internet connection at home, we all have NAT gateways. NAT gateways are what give your non-public IP iPads and iPhones and workstations at home. That's where we give access to the internet. The big difference between what you have at home and the cloud is what you have at home generally has a layer of security in. You can put some coarse grain rules in there to limit what can go out. In the cloud, there is no security function on these as well. This is all or nothing access to the cloud, access to the internet. So that's what our customers are deploying today. And basically the challenges behind this is any workload that has a legitimate reason to go to the internet. You think of developers who are accessing GitHub, they're accessing container repositories, they're accessing really business critical services on the internet. They do need to have that access. The challenge is, and you think of this maybe a container repository, you're downloading a container repository from a third party, that container may have some malicious software as part of it. Once you've deployed that on your workload, that malicious piece of software now has free access out to any sort of command and control that might be out on the internet to further have some sort of lateral movement, vectors of attack. So this is really highlights the lack of security behind these NAT gateways. So what happens if you do download a malicious piece of software and it's going out to the internet? Well, you have no observability today on these NAT gateways. There's no function which is telling you, hey, this piece of software is reaching out to badservice.com, and it shouldn't be. So that's observability is a big problem. If you don't have observability, it's very difficult to enforce a governance policy. If you have any sort of breach that at the beginning you are unaware of, the cost, IBM estimate this cost of 5 million average. Now this is monetary cost. There's also expense to your brand reputation, things like that, which fall into this security category as well. These can be relatively difficult to scale. Think of large-scale enterprises who have thousands of VNets and VPCs. You are deploying these as individual elements, and they're being managed as individual elements as well. And then if you think about this from a cost perspective, there's two vectors of cost associated with NAT gateways. There is a fixed per hour usage, which is predictable. It's great. However, there's a variable use case that as well, dependent on the volume of data that goes out. So if you are a large-scale user of these NAT gateways, they can become quite expensive quite quickly. If you summarize the pain behind this, they fall into two categories. You've got business pain, you've got technical pain. Now, from the business folks, they are obviously looking at cost, and anywhere on the cloud that you can start to cut cost and control cost, it's a good thing because these things add up. And then I think what's top of mind for customers I speak to is, of course, anything around security, compliance, governance, and brand reputation. Those are really, really critical to protect. Now, if you inversely, correlate those to technical pain, of course, if you want to have compliance and governance, you have to have the ability to enforce policy. And if the elements that you are deploying don't give you the possibility to enforce policy, then they're not going to meet any sort of business requirement around compliance and governance. Going beyond that, you don't have with the cloud native components, you don't have insights into troubleshooting. You can't do any sort of forensics on them. It's very difficult to identify poor performance due to noisy neighbors. And if there's one workload in your VPC that's consuming most of that capacity of the NAT gateway, it's very, very difficult to identify what that workload is. And of course, you don't have any sort of overall visibility into what's going out to the internet. No visibility means no security. No security means no governance and compliance. And of course, all this adds into the cost bucket as well. So let's think about how Aviatrix's approach to addressing these problems. Now, we keep a distributed architecture. You do need these endpoints available across all your VPCs and VNets, but we do believe in centralized policy. One place where you can go and define a security policy, and one place you can go and get all of the visibility for your entire estate. So that's our approach to it. Let's jump in. So this is the current state. We addressed these different challenges. We saw that those are problems today. Let's look at what this would look like from an Aviatrix perspective. So the solution is to give our customers observability. By deploying the Aviatrix gateways instead of the cloud native NAT gateways, we are logging, or you are in control of what you are logging, but we are seeing all of the traffic that goes out to the internet. We can have this in our Copilot platform where you can see those logs. We can send those logs to any of your SIEM of choice, Sentinel, Chronicle, whatever you choose to have those logs correlated in. So immediately you're getting observability, which helps you in defining a policy. If you think about this, it's very difficult to put in place a policy if you don't know what's actually going on today. Once you have the ability to see what's going on, you can apply a governance. You can take a governance framework, convert that into a security policy. So you're giving your security teams the ability to come in and audit what is actually going on to the internet. Then, of course, from a security perspective, you'll see a slide animation in the slide there. That piece of malicious software that got downloaded, that's one part of the puzzle. The second part is stopping that malicious workload from reaching back out to the internet. By having that security policy in place, we can actually control what traffic goes out to the internet. So that malicious piece of software that's trying to reach out to badservice.com on the internet can get blocked by the Aviatrix gateway, and it becomes in effect isolated. Then think about this from a scale perspective. We are having a centralized place where you can do all of your lifecycle management for all of our Aviatrix gateways, where you're having a centralized point for your security enforcement, your policy, and a centralized point for logging as well. So you can achieve great scale, and you can take this scale beyond a single cloud into multiple clouds as well. So again, if you were taking this approach for perimeter security to AWS, Azure, and GCP, you would still have one centralized point for your policy, one centralized point for your logging. And of course, the last element is cost. So Aviatrix has only one vector to its cost, and that's a license per hour. So there is no variable rate to this. We are not charging by the gig of volume that goes out through it. So it's a very predictable model that we can help our customers at the very early stages with a business case to identify the total cost of ownership of an Aviatrix solution versus the existing cloud native. So taking this a step further, this kind of highlights those three main points. This would be a distributed deployment. Like I'd mentioned before, a deployment here across AWS, Azure, and GCP. It's a distributed perimeter. So we have enforcement points as close to the workloads as possible. This is a one-to-one replacement of your NAT gateway. So you're getting rid of those cloud native components. You don't need the cloud native components on top of the Aviatrix solution. And the third pillar, of course, is the centralized management, visibility, and control. So Dan, do you want to take it for the zero friction install?
I'd love to talk about how easy it is to install. My favorite thing is deployment, right? So if you were to be using an existing kind of first-party service, so let's just take AWS because I always default to that. It's my first cloud. You always have a warm part in your heart for it. So if you were to be utilizing that gateway today, right? So your workload, EC2 instance or VM, is dialing out via the NAT gateway to the internet. If we wanted to, again, to utilize that Aviatrix solution as opposed to kind of the NAT gateway solution. All we have to do is deploy that Aviatrix gateway. We've made no interruption in traffic. We've made no configuration changes, anything like that. So we've gone into either Copilot, which is kind of our centralized deployment and visibility suite, and we've said deploy a Aviatrix spoke gateway in this particular VPC, or we can do it via Terraform or via API calls. So some of our more mature customers never interact with the UI; they just do kind of integrate that into their CI/CD pipeline. But we've deployed that Aviatrix gateway. Traffic's still going out the existing NAT gateway. Let's go ahead and fix that, right? So we're going to enable source NAT. This again can be done via centralized component. And then basically this is going to change that CSP route that will connect your workload directly through the Aviatrix gateway. So guess what? You've already gotten rid of the use for NAT gateway. It's very, very, very simple to do. Then it's just a matter of getting rid of that existing NAT gateway, which you can go through and do via the AWS console or via Terraform or via API as well. And that will pull your NAT gateway, which retires that expensive per hour cost that you're seeing for the NAT gateway itself. And then, of course, you can utilize that to start enabling your policy enforcement controls and things like that directly on the Aviatrix, either UI or via Terraform or API. So we want to make sure that we talk specifically about kind of how to do that via CI/CD pipeline. Same steps, but we can do it via Terraform, as you see on the screen. It's as simple as enable the NAT gateway turns to false. Or we can actually do the entire deployment via Terraform. We have this, I'll send the link out afterwards, but we have this available on YouTube. So you can see the link there on the left. We also have our entire Terraform registry available on the kind of public registry for Terraform. I think it's like 1.8 million downloads at this point. So there's a significant number of people using our Terraform registry as well. So anything else you want to cover on this one, Paul?
No, that's good, Dan. I think the most important point to get across here is it's an extremely low friction deployment. A lot of folks will be familiar with the overall Aviatrix story, where we solve multi-cloud interconnectivity challenges. We can replace things like TGW and vWAN. Those are obviously more involved projects where you have to have a lot of coordination with different teams. The deployment of the NAT gateway solution here is extremely low friction with almost no impact to the workload at all. You can deploy the Aviatrix controller with no impact. You can deploy the Aviatrix gateway, again, no impact to the workload. It's a simple question of enabling source NAT on our gateway. Our controller orchestrates the routing change of the default route to the internet to go through the Aviatrix gateway, and immediately you have visibility and control. If the behavior isn't what you expected, you simply switch off source NAT and it goes back to the NAT gateway. It is an extremely, extremely low friction and low risk deployment. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, this is a 3-part webinar. So the first part today was to set the scene around the security. Part 2, which I believe is going to be in February, we will take you on a demo of what that actually looks like to show you how that, the routing change, and when you go into learning mode and when you can start to build the policy to actually enforce your governance framework. So that's going to be the next part. And that kind of brings me to just the next slide, I think, is for questions. But before we jump to questions, I would like to share my screen really quickly, just to a very quick call to action. So let me just share this. Dan, can you confirm that you're seeing the Aviatrix page? Sharing?
Yeah. Yes, just came up.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. So this is aviatrix.com. And if you /Aviatrix Pass or you navigate to it, we have now a platform as a service version of Aviatrix. Historically, it's always been a controller deployed in the customer's environment. This is an extremely fast way of getting up and running with Aviatrix and deploying those NAT gateways and getting a very low time to value. In order to sign up, you'll click on register now, put your company email address, and we'll reach out to you to let you know for credentials to log into the PaaS platform and next steps on how you can actually go about deploying gateways and solving your NAT gateway challenges. So that was just a quick call to action for this one. But what we're going to do in the next version of the next session of the webinars, we're going to show you what that PaaS platform looks like. There's some nice AI features in it. We're not at all doing any AI washing today. That's not the objective here, but these are actually features which will, when you're in learning mode, start to correlate those outbound sessions and give you some insights into the reliability of those sessions. So you can proactively create a policy which matches what your company wants to achieve. With that said, I think we're just coming up about 20-minute mark. We had set aside 20 minutes for this part of the webinar. There's a Q&A if you want to add any questions in here. I see there's one question already about the type of
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
Is SourceNet and Aviatrix gateway, could it also be bring your own IP?
Okay, that is a great question. Now, I can imagine that's because you want to whitelist on certain external partners. So we do have capabilities of being specific on the public IP. I guess there's we're thinking about deployments across multiple, hundreds maybe of VPCs. If you have that requirement across all of your VPCs, a breakout in that respect, where you have a specific public IP per VPC and VNet that you want to hard code there, we do have the possibility of referencing specific public IPs. So we go deeper into exactly what the design you're looking for. I can imagine this might be replacing a centralized breakout today where you have 2 or 3 whitelisted public IPs. We could definitely look into the design for that one as well.
Also, is there a free trial or credit to try things out? Yes, there is. So either on the AWS Marketplace or the Azure Marketplace as well. If you go and search for Aviatrix, you can actually find a free 30-day trial in order to spin up the controller and the gateways right there.
Yeah. Next one is, how do you differentiate VPCs with overlapping side ranges? Is it based on the VPC ID? So yes, we do have a way of... So the VPCs obviously won't be speaking to each other because obviously they have overlapping IP addresses. Now, we do have a different solution to solve that, but that's not in the scope of what we're talking about today. But let's say we have 2 VPCs, VPC A, VPC B. They both have the same CIDR range and they're reaching out to the internet. Yes, we do have a way of recognizing the VPC ID for pushing policy out to each one of those. Generally, what we've seen is customers tend to have a standard egress policy, which then gets put out to all of the different workloads across the entire perimeter. However, what you can do is you can be source specific, and that source can be a particular VPC ID. So anything from this VPC ID, let's say VPC ID A can go to github.com, and VPC ID B can only go to gitlab.com. Just to give a dumb example, but we can be granular on the policy per VPC, even if they have overlapping IP addresses.
There's another one, Paul. Is this limited to one AZ?
No, great question. That's not at all. Most customers have a 2 AZ model. We have the same. Customers with a 3 AZ model, we can accommodate that as well. Most popular is a 2 AZ model, yes. And we get AZ affinity, of course. Private subnets in AZ A we'll use the gateway in AZ A.
And that's customizable too. So you're not forced to utilize multiple AZs. Even if you have workloads in multiple AZs, you can choose to deploy a Aviatrix spoke gateway in just one AZ and just do the cross AZ communication and then go out your one spoke gateway. So you can pick and choose. It's very customizable.
Absolutely, absolutely. With failover as well and failure detection. Great, fantastic questions.
Great questions. Thank you, guys.
So it wasn't a question asked, but it's something that I wanted to express is the type of policy. So obviously we can have, FQDN type policy where it's based on the domain. We also have TLS decryption possibility as well, where we have, if you have a trust bundle across your workloads, you can load that trust bundle in the Aviatrix gateway. We can decrypt the TLS sessions, and we can do path level policy inspection as well. So that's also a possibility. Most customers just choose the FQDN because it's already a step far beyond what they have today. Fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah, thank
I don't see
you
any.
everyone so much. Yeah, for the great questions, as well as for your kind attendance, as well as your interest. And then again, to Paul's point, this is the first part in the 3-part series. So really, we're talking about the NAT gateway replacement component of our overall solution in those 3 parts. So today is really kind of security minded. Next month, we're looking specifically at the visibility and the observability troubleshooting capability that comes with that. And then thirdly, we'll be talking about the cost savings in detail as well. So we look forward to having you on parts 2 and 3, or newcomers to parts 2 and 3 as well. We're very happy for whoever wants to come and talk to us. Also, Paul and my contact information should be sent out afterwards. So if you have any direct questions that come up after the fact, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're very communicable individuals, so we're always happy to have conversations with whoever.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, and just exactly what Dan said. Thank you very much for your time today. I know 30 minutes of your time is precious, so thank you for spending it with us. Wishing everybody a great rest of your day, and we will catch you on the next session. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks all.